On a quiet summer night in Puget Sound, July 9, 2012, the sprawling naval shipyard lay still under the watchful eyes of armed guards. The decommissioned USS Whisk, a Cyclone-class patrol ship, rested dockside, awaiting its next chapter with the U.S. Coast Guard. But at 2:30 a.m., the calm was shattered. An intruder was arrested on the deck of the Whisk. His presence was startling. The shipyard was a fortress, nearly impossible to breach. Even more puzzling, this man was seen pacing, as though wanting to be found. What he shared with authorities would prove both astonishing and unexplainable. This man, Orin Drayton, claimed he had not just wandered aboard, but had come from an impossible journey across oceans and dimensions. At first, his story was dismissed, his mental state questioned. But thanks to a rogue whistleblower, a government psychiatrist named Dr. Jagrup Hala, the world would learn of a classified experiment gone catastrophically wrong and the horrifying secrets of the USS Whisk. Orin Drayton was no sailor, no spy. He was an art restorer, an expert in breathing new life into centuries-old paintings. His story began far from Puget Sound, in Riga, Latvia, where he was consulting for a prestigious organization, the Steps and Stones Historical Society. Orin's assignment seemed ordinary. Inspect a set of paintings allegedly uncovered in a crumbling cathedral. His host, Ritmars Brenkis, was an affable, globe-trotting historian, or so he claimed. But in truth, Ritmars was a smuggler, trafficking illicit chemicals for the manufacture of weapons under the guise of cultural preservation. Orin, unaware of Ritmars' double life, joined him for what was supposed to be a short boat ride to the Vice, the Society's ship. What happened next defied all logic. On the morning of July 8th, a heavy fog blanketed the Gulf of Riga as Orin and Ritmars set out. They rowed toward the Vice, confident they'd find it just beyond the gray mist. But after half an hour of rowing, the world around them changed. The fog lifted suddenly, revealing a calm, sunlit sea. Where the Vice should have been was instead a small naval ship. Ritmars was adamant. It wasn't the Vice. Another anomaly. The shore had vanished behind them, which would place them at least 3 miles out to sea, an impossible distance in such a short time. Despite these oddities, and with no answer to their radio calls, their only choice was to approach the strange vessel. They climbed aboard, tying their dinghy to the hull. The deck was eerily silent, devoid of life or identifying flags. Once on board, Ritmars pulled out a pistol, startling Orin. A bitter argument followed regarding the efficacy of brandishing a firearm aboard a military ship. Orin insisting that they would be shot on sight, Ritmars claiming self-defense. They split up, unable to come to an agreement. Orin experienced the interior of the Whisk as a labyrinth of confusion. Hallways twisted impossibly, and rooms seemed to shift and change. Desperate not to lose his way, he marked walls with a pen. But the ship's geometry refused to obey the laws of reality. Orin repeated over and over to himself that he was unfamiliar with the layout of naval ships, and that disorientation was natural. But still, the appearance of his markings in areas where he had not yet ventured threatened to totally undermine his sense of the normal. He stumbled into a room where a man, presumably one of the ship's crew, was fused to the wall. His flesh had melded seamlessly with the metal, his lifeless eyes staring blankly. Orin fled, encountering a series of identical rooms, one after the other. And then he found the corridor. Impossibly long for even the length and width of this ship, the hallway stretched out to the edge of Orin's vision. He passed a few portholes, some showing sunny weather, some showing fog, some showing a still and dead nightfall. A mechanical hum caught his attention, and he opened the door which seemed to house the strange noise. Orin found himself in the heart of the ship, the engine room. But this was no ordinary engine. A massive glass container pulsed with nauseating light, wires snaking from it into nearby servers. And embedded in these machines were more crew members, their bodies grotesquely twisted. Orin heard shouting. He rounded a corner to see Ritmars in full panic, gun drawn and shouting warnings at a shadowy presence in the corner. But before Orin could react, the room itself seemed to come alive. The machines shifted, growing and shrinking as if breathing. One expanded, engulfing Ritmars in an instant. His body exploded in a spray of blood and limbs, leaving behind only fragments of his humanity. Orin ran, rounding corner after corner and opening door after door, taking no thought of direction until he found the deck, collapsing in exhaustion. When guards discovered him hours later, he was pacing in shock, muttering incoherent fragments of his ordeal. Dr. Jagrup Halla, a psychiatrist assigned to Orin's case, became intrigued. The official narrative painted Orin as delusional, traumatized by a smuggler's betrayal. But Halla uncovered documents that hinted at a far darker truth. The Whisk had been part of a top-secret experiment, a camouflage test gone horribly wrong. Using a patchwork of stolen technologies from Cold War adversaries, US scientists attempted to make the ship invisible. Instead, it teleported across the globe, briefly appearing off the coast of Latvia before returning to Puget Sound. Many of the crew died in horrific ways, their bodies fused to bulkheads or lost in folds of space-time. Dr. Halla presented his findings to the lead psychiatrist in the case, but was threatened with dismissal and even charges of treason should he pursue this line of inquiry. His job was to not expose US military secrets. Appalled at the flagrant disregard for the lives of American military personnel, Halla sent all his findings to WikiLeaks. Among the documents uploaded were interviews with Orin, records of his transfer into a highly classified government witness protection program known as Operation Geodrift, as well as satellite images showing the displacement of the Whisk in the naval shipyard and its brief appearance in the Gulf of Riga. Of those aboard the Vice, they reported mild electrical disturbances, but no sighting of a US naval ship, nor any contact with Ritmars and Orin. Their subterfuge was quickly discovered and the smuggling team arrested. Dr. Jagrup Halla is still listed as an employee of the Psychiatric Division of the Department of Defense, but all contact with him by civilians and journalists, anyone without proper government clearance, is refused by the Pentagon Public Relations Committee. To this day, the USS Whisk is a ghost ship in every sense, a vessel lost to its crew, its purpose, and its place in reality.